al mechza. Yesterday, the whole 2 days, we were learning about what happens is half the Jewish population is tameh and half the Jewish population is tahar. And I'm going to throw out, this is for you, Alan. Where do you find mechza al mechza in this week's parsha?
We have by Chatzi Hadam and Chatzi.
There you go. Very good. Excellent. I knew you'd get it. See, no one gets to the end of the Sedra. The end of the Sedra, God they shechted Shlomim, and they had to Moshe Rabbeinu split the blood in half. Half the blood put on the Mizbeach, and half he sprayed on Klal Yisrael. And the Torah, Rashi says over there that how did he know how to split exactly in half and half? Rashi says a malach came and split the blood for Moshe Rabbeinu. So half mechza, whatever you learn in the daf, somehow works its way into the current parsha.
That's interesting. We'll have to Parshas Kisisa, where the Keturah, right? That they had exactly 250 and 250. Messiah, you actually had a little more, right? You did two.
Yeah. Right.
You also have Kachatzi Halayla, Bachatzi Halayla.
Right, no, but this had to be exact.
Yeah, exact, right.
Exact. Okay, we're going to learn tonight Nishmas Fege Bas Chanoi Chena. That is, I guess, your Shlomo's
my grandmother
survivor.
Yeah.
Right.
She was in Auschwitz from the beginning. Wow. She ran out of line during one of the death marches. They escaped. They hid in like in a house. The Russian soldiers came. They hid underneath the bed. Yeah, she's just an amazing story.
I made it with my son to watch with him like a little part of Schindler's List, because he knows nothing about the Holocaust, and it's not taught in the local schools at all. And he's a high teenager, and if he walks through life not broaching the subject, it'd be such a shame. So that's my goal, to work on the kids to know to know the story. That's all. All right, we are holding over here by Daf Pei Amud Sheni, about right in the middle of the Amud, by opposite the Tosas Lav. It's called Nitma Tumas Atahaim. Okay, Nitma Tumas Atahaim. The Mishnah discusses over here an amnesty Mishnah. What the Mishnah says, that what happens if a guy brought his carbon Pesach, and then later they told him, Rabbi, that your blood that was in the carbon Pesach was tamei. So the Kohen sprayed tamei blood for his carbon. The Mishnah says that the tzitz, the Kohen wore this head plate, and that provided amnesty for that person. So he was Yotz's carbon Pesach, and he does not have to bring a Pesach Sheni. Then the Mishnah says that Nitma Haguf, which means that, but what happens if they told him, he finds out later that after he brought his carbon Pesach, that he was Tameh. He was a Tameh person. He had a Tumas Mace, and therefore he was not allowed to bring a carbon Pesach. The Mishnah says, then Einat Tzitz Maratza. That Tzitz does not provide amnesty, and he would have to bring a Pesach Sheni. Now, the Mishnah says, but there is one time when a person has a Tumas Haguf, and he brings his carbon Pesach, and the Tzitz will provide amnesty, and he doesn't have to bring a Pesach Sheni. What's the story? A guy was walking to bring his carbon Pesach and passed over a pile of stones, okay? A wall fell down, and there's a pile of stones, and he just walked over and brought his carbon Pesach. Later, after he brought his carbon Pesach, they uncovered the pile of stones, and they found a dead body. Nobody knew that there was a dead body over there. So that's called Tumas HaTahom, a tumah of the deep. Nobody knew there was a dead body over there. There, the tzitz says that if you b'di'evid brought your carbon Pesach, it's a halach l'moshe Sina that we're going to learn today, that the tzitz provided amnesty. And you don't have to bring a Pesach Sheni, you were yotze with Pesach Rishon. Now comes the Gemara. Nitba tumas tahaim, that's what the Mishnah says. You're okay. The tzitz was maratza. So the Gemara says, okay. Rabbi Bachama had a question. This concept of amnesty, would it also be applied by a kohen. Let's say you're tahar, but the kohen on his way to the service of the Beis Hamikdash, he stepped over that pile of stones and did the service of your carbon Pesach, and then he finds out that he was tummy, a tumas hatahoim. He had that tumah that they found out that there was a dead body over the pile of stones that he walked over. Would the halacha l'Moshe Sinai also apply to this kohen, and that the carbon Pesach is kosher? Me, I'm reading. Do you say Kigamiri? When was the halacha given tumas hatahoim bibalim? Only the owner of the carbon Pesach, b'kohen lo Kigamiri, but it was not given over to the kohen. And therefore, this halacha mashis did not provide that the amnesty of the tzitz would also apply by the kohen. Or dilma, or maybe the halacha mashim Sinai said bezivcha gemiri. It said that tumas hatahoim, the tzitz, provides amnesty for anything done with the carbon Pesach. It doesn't matter who did it, or anything done with the carbon nazir, because that's where the halacha mashim Sinai said. Loishna, there's no difference b'kohen, but loishna ba'alim. No, there's no difference if it was the kohen or the ba'alim. They both will have amnesty for this tumas hatahoim. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava, Tashma, come in here, and I'll bring you a brisa from Rabbi Chia, and from his words, we're gonna logically deduct what the din by a kohen would be. The Tani Rabbi Chia taught, Loi Amru tumas hatahoim ela lameis bavad. Rabbi Chia said that this tumas hatahoim, that the tzitz gives you amnesty, was only said by tumas meis, nothing else. Tumas meis is the highest form of tuma, and the tuma, there you get amnesty. So the Gemara says, meis lemu'ute mai. Meis, what does that come to exclude? That it's only by tumas meis. Lav lemu'ute tumas hatahoim desheretz. That if you have a possibility of tumas hatahoim desheretz, what's a tumas hatahoim of sheretz? A guy put his hand into dirt. The guy, before he came to do his carbon Pesach, he stuck his hand deep into the ground and touched the sheretz, a dead sheretz. Nobody knew that there was a dead sheretz there, so it's a tumas hatahoim. The Rabbi Chia seems to imply that tumas hatahoim would only help you. It would only help you, that tzitz would only help you by tumas meis, not by tumas sheretz, and therefore, which tumas meis is more stricter, much a higher form of tumah than tumas sheretz. Nevertheless, the amnesty for tumas meis, but you would not get amnesty by tumas sheretz, and that is what Rabbi Chia is teaching you. Now, what Gemara is saying, why? What is that? That means that you don't get amnesty by tumas sheretz. Ubamai askinen. What are we talking about? If we're talking about that you're trying to tell me, that Rabbi Chia is trying to tell you that tumas hasheretz, you would not get amnesty if the Baalim had a tumas hasheretz. Ubaman. And who are we talking about? Ibn Nazir, if we're talking about a Nazir, that means the Nazir was tumas hatahoim de sheretz, right? He stuck his hand into the ground, didn't know there was a sheretz there, then brought his karbanas. What's wrong with that? Mi mahanibe. How would that hurt the Nazir? Even if we know for a fact that a Nazir was a tumas sheretz when he brought his carbon, everything is okay, because a Nazir only has a problem of kiyomas meis olav amarachmona. Only when he's dealing with a tumas meis, then you say the Nazir loses his count. He has to recount again. But if he's a tumas sheretz, even if he's a vaday tumas sheretz, even I know for a fact he touched the tumas sheretz, that doesn't hurt a Nazir. He can still bring a kohen. So I don't need amnesty or not amnesty from the tzitz. The Nazir is good. Ella ba'oisei Pesach, an oisei Pesach. Guy is coming to do a Pesach. Now, the guy is coming to do a Pesach. He touched a tumas hatahoim de sheretz, right? He brought his carbon Pesach, and they told him that the underneath the ground where you put your hand, there was a sheretz there, and therefore, there's a possibility that his carbon Pesach is possible because he's a tamei person, but he's not really a tamei person because he can really go to the mikvah and become tahor. So let's say, so how does that work? This would work very well. This whole thing would make pretty much sense. Where if you say that a normal person cannot shech the carbon Pesach if he's a tamei sheretz. The despite the fact that he could go to the mikveh and eat the carbon pesach at night, since the b'shas shchita since at the time of shchita you are tamei, so since at the time of shchita you are tamei, so then certainly certainly that you can't have certainly that makes sense. Elo, that means that's why I need that I would have thought the amnesty of the carbon pesach. I would have thought the amnesty of the carbon pesach applies by the Tumas Sheretz. Kamash Mal Rav Chia, it does not apply by Tumas Sheretz. Elo Mandi, but according to the opinion, that you could shecht the carbon on Tamei Sheretz. So even if we know for a vadai that the person was a Tamei Sheretz, you could bring a carbon pesach. Hashta tuma yudua hutra loy tuma satahoin loy kol shkein. Even if we know for a fact that the person was a Tamei Sheretz, certainly he could bring the carbon pesach. Of course, if he was a tuma satahoin, then certainly he could bring a carbon pesach. What do I need the tzitz to be maratza? He certainly could bring a carbon pesach. So what was Reb Chia talking about? Ella la b'koyin. The Reb Chia was talking about koyin and telling me that by a koyin, if he's a tumas atahaim by a mace, then the tzitz is maratza. But if he's a tumas koyin, if the koyin himself was a tumas sheretz and he's not permitted to perform the service, then the tzitz does not provide amnesty. Ushmamina, from here we can prove that what? Hutra loy tumas atahaim b'sheretz. That hutra loy tumas atahaim, not by sheretz, by tmei meis. That a kohen who's a tmei meis, it would be permitted to have tumas atahaim. So very good. What did Rava just prove? Rava just proved that if a kohen did the service and found out he was a tmei meis because of a tumas hatahaim, right? He went over that pile of stones. Then that would be good. So that would be solved the aboya of Rami Bar Chama. Amar Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef said, "Loi, that's not true. La'olam, I would tell you that what la'olam I would tell you babalam ubepes labalam that it's talking about the owners ubepesach and it's talking about Pesach." And ulamuute tumas hatahaim de ziva is coming to limit the tumas hatahaim of a ziva. Listen to this. What is a zav? A zav is somebody who has this semen emission that is sickly, right? It's not done through a kishui, and it's just like a sickly type of semen. And if he has it for 2 days, what's the halacha? The halacha is that what? The halacha is that if he has it for 2 days, if he has it for 2 days, then he has to wait 7 days to purify himself, 7 complete days to purify himself. So now we're talking about a guy who was 7th day comes out on Erev Pesach. He's bringing his carbon Pesach. Now he has to have 7 clean days. He can't have a hefsek. He can't, have another admission because then you have to restart the count again. So a guy's 7th day is on Erev Pesach. He brings the carbon Pesach. Let's say he brings the carbon Pesach at 1:00 in the afternoon. Then he finds out that he's a Tamei Zav, that he has an emission at 3:00 in the afternoon. So that's a Tumas Atahoim. Why is that called a Tumas Atahoim? Because nobody knew if he would become Tamei. It's like a complete unknown. So I would have thought that Tumas Atahoim, the Alochel Moshe Sinai was said that this guy is kosher and he has a kosher carbon. That's what Rav Chia is teaching me. That Tumas Atahoim is only works by Tmei Meis, but not by Tmei Ziva, by Tumas Atahoim de Ziva. And that's what Rav Chia is teaching me. And Rav Chia's message is only by the Bailam, only by the owner, but not, Rav Chia wasn't talking about the coin. So you wouldn't have a proof of what would be the din by Tumas Hatahoim by a coin, because Rav Chia's message and conversation was only by the Bailam. So Frag the Gemara. So what are you trying to say? That Tumas HaTahoim of Ziva, the tzitz would not provide amnesty. Okay? The tzitz would not provide amnesty. That's what you're trying to say. Wait a second. Utumas HaTahoim the Ziva loy meratza. The Tumas HaTahoim of a Ziva would not provide amnesty. But Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi's topic is the woman who's a Zav. You see, a man who's a Zav, I know there's an English word for that sickness, but it has to do with the zera that comes out of the person. And it's a type of sickly zera. It's a type of sickness. A woman's Zava nature is like this. A woman that sees blood, min Torah, she can see blood for 7 days and just go to the mikveh and have relations with her husband. Then there's an 11-day period where the Torah says that she's not supposed to see any blood. And if she sees blood during that 11-day period, that's a sickly type of blood. And therefore, if she sees 1 or 2 days of blood during that 11-day period between the cycles, so then she would have to keep 1 day of purity at the and then she becomes tahar. In other words, let's say she saw blood on Sunday and Monday, Tuesday has to be a clean day, and then she goes to the mikveh and at night she's tahar. Let's say she saw Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I'm sure you know the halacha. Then the Torah says that she's tamei for 7 days, and therefore she's not allowed to see a drop of blood for the next 7 days. And then after the 7th day, she goes to the mikveh and has to bring karbonos, because that's a sign of ziva, sickness. Now, the Rabbi Yossi says a shemeres yom means a woman who's watching to make sure the day is clean. Keneged yom. For example, she saw a blood on the 13th day of Nisan, right? The day before Erev Pesach. Then on the 14th day of Nisan, she's supposed to make sure she's 100% clean, okay? She goes, brings her carbon Pesach. Sheshachtu v'zarko alel. And they spritzed the blood on her. Basheni shalom. This is the second day of her. So her first day was the 13th day of Nisan, that when she saw the blood. And this is the day she's supposed to be super clean. So let's give it the example. At 1 o'clock, they brought the carbon Pesach. Then, what does Torah say? And then she saw blood. So the Rabbi Yossi said, Eina echeles, she cannot eat, obviously, the carbon Pesach because she's tamei. But here's the point. Upatura v'lasas Pesach sheni. She doesn't have to bring a Pesach sheni because this is called the tumas hatahoim of ziva. My timer. What's the reason? La mishum dim ratzei tzitz. That because she had amnesty because of the tzitz. You got through saying that what Rabbi Yossi meant was only tumas mace has amnesty with tumas hatahoim from the tzitz, but not tumas zav. And here we see that even with tumas zav, this woman has amnesty with the tzitz. So that's why, even though she has a tamei carbon Pesach that she cannot eat, she doesn't have to bring a Pesach sheni. So the Gemara says a novel understanding of Rabbi Yossi. Amrei loy mishum the Ksav Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi holds a very interesting thing by zav. Mikan hu abah hu meta'amo. Rabbi Yossi holds by azaba that when we say that she has to keep the day clean, right? Let's say she saw blood. The next day she has to keep it a clean day. Only the beginning of the day she needs to keep clean. Why? Because we always say miktzah sayom kekulai. And if, let's say, she keeps the beginning of the day clean, in the afternoon, if she sees blood, that's like a new blood that has nothing to do with the previous blood. So it's like a brand new ziva. So what the Gemara is basically saying is that when she started Erev Pesach, right, she was clean, 100% clean. Although she saw blood on the 13th day, on the 14th day, she was clean. At midday, she brings the carbon Pesach. If she sees blood afterwards, we don't say retroactively that she is tamei. That's not what Rabbi Yossi holds. Mikan ulaba, from now to the future, she becomes tamei. It's a brand new ziva. So she was completely tahar at the time she brought her carbon Pesach, and therefore the fact that she sees blood later doesn't retroactively make her tamei. That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Rabbanan disagree. Rabbanan hold that if you see blood later on, retroactively you're tamei. But Rabbi Yossi holds no, from here on and further you're tamei. So therefore, now you can understand why she punted to him doing a Pesach Sheni. It's not because the tzitz provided amnesty. It's because what? She was never tamei at that time. So that's what Rabbi Yossi holds. So the Gemara says, Well, Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Yossi Omer. Wait, do you want to say Rabbi Yossi holds Mikana Laba? The Gemara is going to ask a question. But Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Yossi Omer Zov Bal Shteiriyas. Back to the man who sees the two semen sightings, right? The sickly semen. Now that guy who sees two of them, he has to wait 7 days of no seam, no zav coming out of him. Now his seventh day came out on their Pesach, right? Seventh day, and he has to keep that whole day clean. According we're thinking, but Rabbi Yossi says sheshachtu v'zarku alav b'shvi yishaloi. They shechted the Korban Pesach on his seventh day, and then he sees ziva. Same case of what we said before. The shemeres yom kineged yom. That means she's supposed to keep the 14th day clean because she saw on the blood on the 13th day. And so they shechted, let's say at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the Korban Pesach. And then she saw dam. Or the first case was the Baal Zav. They shechted the Korban Pesach at 1 o'clock, and then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he sees Ziva again. Harei Elam Mitam. These people are Tameh, and they can't eat from the Korban Pesach. And not only that, Mishkav Umoishev Lemafreya. Anything they sat on during the morning turns out to be Tameh, because we retroactively Mitame everything that they sat on. So we see that the Tumah doesn't go Mikana Laba. It goes retroactively, that from the beginning of the day, we consider them Tameh. And nevertheless, Rabbi Yossi says, Upatur Malasas Pesach Sheni. They're potter from making a Pesach Sheni. So what do we see from there? That the reason why they're potter from doing a Pesach Sheni is because the tzitz provided amnesty. Because Rabbi Yossi clearly says that we go backwards, that retroactively we turn out that they were tamei from the beginning of the day. And therefore, when they brought the Pesach, they were tamei. And nevertheless, they're potter from doing a Pesach Sheni. It's because Tumas HaTahoim would also apply by Korban Pesach. By Tumas HaTahoim of Zav would apply by Korban Pesach. So the Shiva boy, the Gemara answers, Maila Mafreya. What Rabbi Yossi meant, Mafreya, it's Tameh, it's Midrabanan. Only Midrabanan it's Tameh. Midoraisa, you say Mikana Laba, that it's a brand new Tameh. That means the guy woke up on his seventh day is Erev Pesach. He didn't see any Zav come from him during the morning. Then he's tar. He's a completely tar person. He doesn't have to wait till the day end. Mikta Sayam Kakulai. If he sees Zav in the afternoon, it's like a brand new Zava. By Rabbi Yossi says that whatever you sat on, chair that you sat on in the morning becomes Tameh. That's only Tameh with Rabbanan. With the Raisa, we say Mikan Lahaba. So once with the Raisa, we say Mikan Lahaba, that means you really did a very kosher Korban Pesach because you were tar. And therefore, you're potter from doing a Pesach Sheni. Af Rabbi Shaya holds that that's what Rabbi Yossi meant. The Mafreya is Midrabanan. My metame, I'm afraid of the bonim, because this is supposed to be the Omer Rabbi Shaya said a concept. Avo zav shara b'shvi shaloi soisesh shlomonim. A zav that sees on the seventh day, it sees a little bit on the seventh day. So then soise eshelafonov, he has to restart the count. So Rabbi Shaya seems to hold Yikselim Afreya. As soon as you see on the seventh day, no matter what happened, even if you see in the afternoon of your seventh day, you have to restart the count because it's not straight. Again, a Zav needs 7 complete clean days, according to Rabbi Shaya. But Rabbi Yochanan says, Rabbi Yochanan said, I disagree. Lo yister el yoymed. You only lose 1 day. So the Gemara doesn't understand. What do you mean? You lose only 1 day. What does Rabbi Yochanan hold? Does Rabbi Yochanan hold you go backwards and you say Lamafreya, you become Tameh? I feel a kulinami lister. You should lose all 7 days. If Rabbi Yochanan holds Mikan Ulahabahu Matame, that means it goes on, it goes from now to going to the future. That means the 7th day you started off, you didn't see a Zav. It shouldn't cause you to lose even the day number 7. You're starting a brand new Ziva on the seventh day. And the seventh day, if you just see one time of Zav, by the way, you're just like a Balkari. Go to the mikveh and the Torah at night. It's not connected to a 3-time. It doesn't connect to the previous Ziva. So what did Rabbi Yochanan mean? Ella, Rabbi Yochanan said, Lo yister v'lo yomei. Rabbi Yochanan says it doesn't knock away, it doesn't refute any days. In other words, even a Zav that sees on the seventh day, if he started off the morning pretty good, he didn't see anything, then he's tahar. And from now on that he sees that day, he becomes a brand new tumah. So Rabbi Yochanan, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. If Amalei, Rabbi Shaya said to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yossi koy kavasech. Rabbi Yossi agrees with you. In other words, Rabbi Yossi also holds mikan alaba. Just like you, Rabbi Yochanan, hold mikan alaba, Rabbi Yossi also holds mikan alaba. Oh, but how did Rabbi Shaya learn? Rabbi Yossi oimer betam and mishkav v'moishel afreya. But didn't Rabbi Shaya see that Rabbi Yossi said that you metama everything from the morning, that you go backwards and say everything that the guy sat on is tamei. If he sees on the seventh day in the afternoon, in the morning, everything that he sat on becomes tamei. How could you hold both? Mikan alaba or mafreya, that everything is tamei. Elav shmamina. Rabbi Yeshaya learned in Rabbi Yossi is betama lemafreya midrabanan shmamina. From here, you prove that Rabbi Yochanan, what Rabbi Yossi meant to say is that your metama lemafreya. I agree that everything comes tamei, but it's only midrabanan. Midaraisa, as soon as you have a good start to your seventh day, fine, you're tahar. In the afternoon, if you see zav, that's a new counting. Now, just the Gemara just closes up some loose ends. According to Rabbi Yossi, then from Rabbi Chia's words in the beginning, you would have a proof that a kohen is hutra loy tumas atahaim. Because according to Rabbi Yossi, since he holds mikan alaba, I can't use that what Rabbi Chia said, that only tumas atahaim works by tumei meis and not by something else, cannot mean it doesn't work by tumas zav, because we don't need him to say that, because by tumas zav, a person is generally tahar at the time of bringing the carbon pesach. I don't need it sits amnesty. So it must be that the topic of Rabbi Chia was talking about, a coin. So according to Rabbi Yossi, that Rabbi Yossi, that Rabbi Chia said. Now that you say that Rabbi Yossi says mikana laba, a zav becomes tamei, lemeis bilbad lemutei mai. What did Rabbi Chia mean to say that only a tamei meis tumas atahoim that sits provides amnesty? It must be nifshet mina the bekoyen v'hoter loy tumas akahoim. That what Rabbi Chia was talking about. That what he's trying to say is that a kohen has amnesty only if he does the service with a tumei meis tumas atahoim, but he doesn't get amnesty if he does tumas sheretz with tumas atahoim. So you have according to Rabbi Yossi, you have an answer, you have a resolution to your question. So the Gemara says, Amri, no, you can answer like this. You could also say that Rabbi Chia was talking about the owners and the Pesach. And he's trying to say that tumas meis, tumas atahoim, that's you get amnesty, but not by tumas sheretz. He goes back to the original question. The Kesavar and Rabbi Yossi will hold, ein sheichtim v'zarkin al tamei sheretz. A guy who's a tamei sheretz cannot shecht a carbon pesach. That's an opinion. So if Rabbi Yossi holds that, then I would have thought that the tzitz would provide amnesty for a tamei sheretz. Kamash balam the itzrich lamute, to tell you that no, the amnesty would only work if the person was tamei meis tumas atahoim, but not if he's worth a tamei sheretz. So you still have no resolution to the question: would the kohen be also included in this tumas atahoim halacha l'maisha masina? The Gemara just closes up one more loose end. Ela Rabbi Yossi zava gemura heichem ishkacheslam. How do you have a possibility of zava gemura? What is a zava gemura? A person, the way we learn is a person sees Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. But if, according to Rabbi Yossi, if each day is that you start off and you didn't see ziva is considered like a tahar day, you never have 3 in a row. The Torah says that in order for you to become tamei, you need to be 3 days in a row, seeing ziva. But usually you start off in the morning, you didn't see any zav, or the woman didn't see any blood. So that day is considered like a tahar day. So you don't have the continuation of three sightings in a row, because the beginning of the day is considered like the whole day. So what was the Torah talking about? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yossi is going to say that the Torah is talking about b'shoifa'as, that the woman kept and the man kept leaking throughout 3 days in a row. There was no hefsek. As soon as she woke up in the morning, there's blood and blood throughout the day. So she, in other words, she wakes up right away at the start of the day. Really, that's what you're trying to say. That the start of each and every day of the 3 days, she sees ziva. So therefore, there's no hefsek there's no interruption. If you want, I can tell you. She saw for Tuesdays by twilight. So, for example, she saw Friday night by Friday twilight. So that's counted as if she saw on Friday and on Shabbos day. So, Mameli, she started Shabbos as already Tameh, because she started in the beginning of Shabbos of twilight. She already seeing Dam. And then she saw Matzah Shabbos at twilight. So already when she started Saturday night, Sunday, already she's seeing Dam, also a way of having 3 days in a row of Ziva. And that's what the Torah is talking about when you're a Zav Vadai, that you'll have to wait. Certainly you have to wait 7 clean days, but also you'll have to bring karbonos at the end. All right, very Taurus the Gemara. Now let's continue. Let's continue with a new push over here. Boya Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef taught Kohen Hamaratzeh B'Tamid. A Kohen bringing the carbon tamid. A regular Kohen bringing a carbon tamid. Then he finds out that they told him, Rabbi, on your way to the service of the temple, you stepped over a pile of stones, and there was a tumas mace on that. So, and he brought the carbon tamid. Were we yaitze the tumas atahoim, and therefore we say, oh, it was brought betuma, but so what? There's a halacha ma'ishmasinai that tumas hatahoim, is not a problem. Maybe that halacha ma'ishmasinai was only said by Pesach and Nazir, and not by a regular carbon tamid. If you want to say that by a regular carbon pesach, a kohen who had tumas atahoim, it's okay. The tzitz provides amnesty. That maybe if the kohen would actually do a carbon pesach, then you have amnesty. But if the kohen hamaratza b'tamid, what would it be the din? Says the Gemara. If the kohen would do the carbon tamid, would the tumas atahoim, would the tzitz provide amnesty? In other words, I'm reading, do you say, Ki Gemir Tumas Atahoim? When did we learn that you get amnesty by this thing called Tumas Atahoim? The Pesach, by carbon Pesach, Betamid like Gemiri. But by Tamid, we don't have this halacha Reshuni. Dilma, or maybe, Yolef Tamid B'Pesach Pesach will learn that just like amnesty by Tumas Atahoim is by Pesach, it should also apply by Tamid. So the Gemara asks this question. Amar Rabba says, Kal v'chomer. I can make a logical Kal v'chomer that it should apply by carbon tamid, because a carbon pesach is a weaker type of carbon. Ma b'mokam shleihut like tuma yadua. A carbon pesach, there's no heter. If a yachid is tamei, he cannot bring a carbon pesach, because basically a carbon pesach is a carbon yachid. Hutru loy tumas hatahoim. But if there's tumas hatahoim, then we say the guy, if he had tumas atahoim, his carbon pesach is kosher. Mokam shehutulai tumas yidua. By carbon tamid, when everybody is tameh, if you know for sure everybody is tameh, carbon tamid is brought to tumah. So now we go to pei aleph and bebeis. Ein edin shehutulai tumas atahoim. Certainly tumas atahoim should be permitted. So therefore, what the Gemara wants to learn through a kal v'chomer, that just like amnesty by tumas atahoim applies by carbon pesach to the kohen, so also a regular amnesty to Tumas Atahim would apply by regular coin, one coin. He brought a carbon tamid. We don't have to bring a new carbon tamid because we learn it from a kal v'chomer. The Gemara says, Amri, do you ever say mi dainin and kal v'chomer mahalacha? Can you try to extend a halacha l'mayshim Sinai through a kal v'chomer? I'll prove it to you from a brisa that you never do that. Halacha l'mayshim Sinai is something that you can never understand, and it only applies where it was said. Latanya, we learned in the brisa, Amalei Rabbi Lazar Akiva, etzem kusayra halacha, revi'is dam kal v'chomer, the ain't done in kal v'chomer halacha. You have to know what that sugi is talking about. But the point there is that you don't learn a kal v'chomer from a halacha l'mayshim Sinai, and that's why you don't learn revi'is dam from etzem kusayra. So a kal v'chomer cannot extend a halacha l'mayshim Sinai. So Ella Amar Rava says Yolaf Mayadoi mi Pesach. Mayadoi is from carbon Pesach. That means that it says the word Mayadai by Tamid. It says the word Mayadai by carbon Pesach. Now you have a Gezerah Shava. The Gezerah Shava could tell you that all halachas that apply by Pesach, even halacha l'Moshe Sinai, would extend to carbon Tamid. So because of this Gezerah Shava, we can extend the halacha l'Moshe Sinai that provided amnesty for Tumas Atahim by Pesach. That amnesty would also apply by carbon Tamid. So a kohen, one kohen, he's the only kohen. There are many Torah Kohanim in the base of Mikdash. If this kohen walked over a pile of stones and was the kohen that did the service for the Kamid Tamid, and they told him that under the pile of stones was a mace, we say that the tzitz that the kohen gadol wore, he has amnesty, and that carbon tamid is a kosher carbon tamid, and we don't have to bring a new one. Now the Gemara just concludes and says the tumas hatahoim gufa heichek siva. The Gemara wants to know. I keep telling you that tumas hatahoim, the amnesty of tumas hatahoim, is a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. How do you know? The Gemara originally thought that maybe you learn it from a pasuk. Because Amar Rabbi Lazar said maybe a pasuk. Amar Kra v'chiyomas meis olav. The Torah says by a nazir that he becomes tamei only if he sees somebody die in front of him. B'mechuveres olav. He has to see the mace. A tumas atahim, according to the way the Gemara is learning now, is that if the nazir never knew about the tamei, even if everybody else knew about the mace, then he has amnesty. So the Gemara, hold that thought. Ashkechon Nazir, Oiseh Pesach Menolim. That only tells you that Nazir has Tumas Atahim leniencies. How do you know a guy who makes carbon Pesach has Tumas Atahim leniencies? Rabbi Yochanan, Amakra, B'derech Rechoika Lechem. It talks about carbon Pesach. You bring it if you're far away. So B'muchuveres Lechem. It means it has to be clear to two people. To two people. That means two people have to know about the Tmei mace, that there's a mace over here. If two people don't know, if two people don't know about it, then it's if two people don't know about it, then it's a Tumas Atahim. Rab Shimon ben Lakish Ama Kederach. What makes something a Tamei? Maderach begolu av Tuma name begolu. In order for you to become Tamei and you have amnesty, is only if everybody knew about this Tomei. And therefore, Tomei Meis and Tumas Atahim is only if everybody knows about this Toma. So the Gemara says that the whole thing, this whole psukim don't make sense because Meisivei. We learned in a brisa, Ezehu Tumas Atahim. What is called a Tumas Hatahim? What is called a Tumas Atahim? I gave you the example of Tumas Atahim is that nobody ever knew there was a body underneath there. It's a pile of stones and you just walked over it. Nobody ever said anything that there was mace underneath. Kol shaloi hikabo echad b'soif ha'olam. Nobody, there's not one person that knew about it. Hikabo echad b'soif ha'olam. If there's one person that knows that there's a dead person underneath, ain't that tumas atahim. That is not the tumas atahim. That's not called a tumas atahim where you get amnesty. So, according to Rabbi Lazar, the Amar b'muchuveres elev, the ad yadahu, he requires that the only thing that makes everything else is a tumas atahim until you know about it. So here we see that no, even if you don't know about it, if there are others that do know about it, that's not tumas atahim. The Rabbi Yochanan the Amar B'cheres Lechem Adu Yada Betrain. He requires that in order for something to be not tumas atahim, to be is until 2 people know about it. And the Rab Shimon ben Lakish Lamakedera Ad Yodabei Kuli Alma. In order for something to be not Tumas Atahoim means everybody has to know about it. But anything less is called Tumas Atahoim. From this brisa we see Tumas Atahoim is such a unique case. It's kamat impossible to happen. A Tumas Atahoim is when not one person that's alive on planet Earth knows that there's a dead body here. That's the only shot of Tumas Atahoim when you get amnesty for. And if you learn it from these psukim, it seems to imply that perhaps that if you don't know about it, or 2 people don't know about it, or if anything less than the tzibur not knowing, that's called Tumas Atahoim. That's not true. Tumas Atahoim means nobody knows about it. Ella Tumas Atahoim, the whole concept of Tumas Atahoim is Hilchasa Gemira law. It's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, and they defined it, and they gave you the halachas of where to apply. Across Machtab Alma, and the psukim that we just brought are just ramazim, but that's not the source. The source of Tumas Atahoim is halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Just point out one point that we learned over here, that to make a nazir tahar, he has to go 7 days of complete tahara. If he messes up in the let's say day 5, then he has to restart the count again. It's a very interesting concept when you're trying to somebody's trying to be mitahar himself. The importance of complete consistency, and you can't interrupt that. And you see that very brought out very clearly in the halachas of Zav, which we discussed in today's Zav.
Yeah, thank you.
Very hard Gemara. Obviously, I mean, most people will find this little not familiar, but we're going to continue on into much easier Gemara going forward. That's what I tell you. And we're only, I think, less than 30 days from completing this Masechta, Mitzvah. Okay.
Thank you.
Enough.